On the morning of that emblematic meeting, the eyes of the world turned to the White House. It was not just another meeting between heads of state, but a conversation full of intentions, carefully measured speeches and signals that went beyond common diplomatic gestures. Donald Trump received Benjamin Netanyahu warmly, with the kind of strategic cordiality that, although shrouded in smiles and handshakes, hid discussions that could shape the geopolitical balance of the Middle East in the coming years. It was in this atmosphere full of symbolism that the most delicate issue returned to the table: the ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages held by armed factions, mainly linked to Hamas. Both leaders made a point of mentioning the importance of achieving stability in the region, but what really caught the attention was Netanyahu's unconventional approach. In a passage that quickly circulated in international media outlets and strategic forums, the Israeli Prime Minister openly suggested the possibility of relocating Palestinians to neighboring countries. That's right, mass relocation, something rarely said out loud, much less on a stage like the Oval Office. The statement was met with astonishment by some in the press, but among more experienced analysts, the impact was even greater. After all, this is not just a political proposal. It is a radical break in the paradigm of international negotiations on the future of Palestine. By putting forward this idea, Netanyahu not only challenged the already weakened two-state solution, but also signaled that Israel is willing to take an even tougher stance on its territorial and security interests. It also raised uncomfortable questions. How would this relocation be carried out? Who would accept this population? And most importantly, would the international community accept this new model of a final solution to the Palestinian question? But that wasn't all. Amid this tense scenario, an unexpected scene momentarily diverted the focus. Netanyahu, in a ceremonious and rehearsed manner, formally nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. The reason, according to him, would be Trump's decisive role in diplomatic advances between Israel and Arab countries, and his firm stance towards regimes considered enemies of regional stability. This nomination, although symbolic, carries profound political weight. Trump, known for his strong and often polarizing speeches, is now being elevated once again to the status of peacemaker, at least in the narrative constructed around this meeting. Behind the scenes, sources close to the two leaders point out that the meeting was much more than what was shown on camera. Confidential conversations, informal agreements, and exchanges of strategic guarantees took place away from the microphones. What is known, however, is that the alignment between the US and Israel has once again solidified in a clear way, with public statements that speak of friendship, trust, and shared visions for the future of the region. The presence of the flags of both countries in the background, Trump's measured speech, and Netanyahu's resolute tone created the perfect backdrop for a subtle but powerful message. The West is ready to reshape the Middle East, and it is starting where it always does: Jerusalem. This reshaping is not just coming through tanks or missiles, but now through treaties, rehearsed speeches, and nominations for peace prizes. The war has changed shape, which is why you need to pay close attention to everything that is being articulated. The next steps are crucial, but it is precisely now that the public needs to reflect. What does this rapprochement between leaders really mean? Are we witnessing a theater of power where peace is just a script to achieve other interests? And why is this proposal for relocation emerging precisely now, after years of impasse and cycles of violence between Israel and Palestine? Comment below with your thoughts on all this. If you believe there is more to these statements, write, "They are hiding something" in the comments. Or if you think this is just the beginning of something much bigger, write, "This is going to blow up soon." Your opinion is essential to understand what people are noticing, and most importantly, what is still being ignored. What is now being drawn up Before our very eyes is a new power configuration that could change not only the balance of power in the Middle East, but also directly affect energy security, the blocks of influence, and even the foreign policy direction of the world's greatest powers. After years in which Iran occupied the position of the main antagonist in the region, its recent weakening has not gone unnoticed by international strategists. The military defeat, although not officially recognized, represented a profound change in the game. Iran, which financed and armed groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas, found itself for the first time in years internally destabilized, economically pressured, and militarily exposed. This opened the way for bold moves by Israel and its allies. Hezbollah, long seen as Iran's armed wing in Lebanon, has suffered significant losses in both territory and political legitimacy. Surgical strikes, economic embargoes, and a series of diplomatic actions have drastically reduced its ability to mobilize. The same can be said of Hamas, whose base in Gaza is being dismantled and whose narrative no longer convinces even part of the Palestinian population itself. With these forces collapsing or in retreat, the stage has become ripe for an unprecedented diplomatic rapprochement. Israel has begun to reach out, not to its historic enemies, but to its Arab neighbors who previously dared not even recognize it officially. Saudi Arabia, the Sunni powerhouse and guardian of Islam's holiest sites, has begun a process of dialogue with Israel that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Qatar, often accused of funding extremist groups, is now also taking the floor as a mediator. The United Arab Emirates had already taken the first step with the Abraham Accords, but now the tone is different. The talk is no longer just about tolerance, but also about economic cooperation, strategic alliances, and intelligence sharing. This new network of alliances is being shaped around common interests: security against Shiite extremism in Iran, stability for foreign investment, and unrestricted access to oil and natural gas, without threat of blockade or sabotage. And this is where the game begins to affect the entire world. Global energy security has always been tied to the balance in the Middle East. When the region goes into turmoil, prices soar, markets fluctuate, and Western countries go into containment mode. Now, if this new axis led by Israel and the Gulf countries manages to stabilize the region, the repercussions will be direct across the planet, especially in the United States. American foreign policy, traditionally divided between intervention and isolation, finds a rare opportunity in this new scenario to influence without having to deploy troops. With Israel acting as a strategic pivot, the US can maintain its regional control through bilateral agreements and economic pressure, avoiding direct confrontations and internal friction in an election year. And if Trump returns to the center of this board as a negotiating figure, this position is further strengthened. The nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize is not just a symbolic gesture. It is a move that seeks to reposition its global image and regain the trust of the more pragmatic electorate. All of this, of course, also has an impact on the much-debated two-state solution, with the proposal to relocate the Palestinians being put on the table. Even if without many details, the idea of a sovereign Palestine is beginning to lose ground in international discourse. What is now being proposed, even if veiled, is the replacement of a worn-out model with a geographic and population reconfiguration that pleases the new Arab allies and neutralizes the old pockets of resistance. But this change does not come without costs. We are talking about a new Middle East, but also new risks. China and Russia, for example, are not oblivious to these movements. Both have been trying to expand their influence in the region and may see this new axis as a direct threat. The reconfiguration of Western interests around Israel may generate asymmetric responses with the use of militias, cyber warfare, or economic pressure. In addition, Non-state groups, still active in countries such as Syria, Iraq and Yemen, may react violently to this rapprochement between Israel and its Arab neighbors. Meanwhile, the average citizen anywhere in the world only sees the headlines and does not see what is really being decided behind them. Therefore, those of you who are watching this video need to ask yourself, why is peace being sold now? What are the leaders trying to build in such a hurry? And who really benefits from this new geopolitical chess game? Write in the comments, something big is being prepared, if you believe there is more behind this new alignment. Or, if you perceive a global change that few are seeing, write, we are entering a new era. These phrases help identify who is really awake to everything that is happening. Based on what has been built up so far, what is emerging behind the scenes of international diplomacy is a scenario of absolute uncertainty, but also of potential rupture with the order established in recent decades. The Middle East walks a fine line between carefully crafted strategic stability and a new wave of conflicts that could erupt with even greater force. The burning question is, are we about to witness a true era of lasting peace, or is all this just the calm rehearsed before an inevitable storm? The coming months will be decisive, depending on how Arab countries react to the Palestinian relocation proposal and the internal response this will have among the Palestinians themselves. The world could see the emergence of a new front of radicalization. Jihadist groups, already wounded and weakened, tend to respond with violence when they realize that they have lost diplomatic relevance. They thrive on chaos, and nothing would be more useful for their narratives than an explicit rapprochement between Israel and traditionally opposing Islamic nations. Iran, for its part, although weakened, maintains resources, influence, and a willingness to act indirectly, especially through allied militias. If pressured too much, it could use the pretext of defending Islam to reactivate its unconventional warfare network. The United States plays a decisive role in this game. In the midst of the electoral race, political decisions are intertwined with campaign strategies. Supporting Israel unconditionally can guarantee votes, especially among evangelicals and conservatives, but it can also heighten global tensions and compromise the US's position as a legitimate mediator. If Trump returns to power, he is likely to further harden this alliance with Israel, reinforcing the Western bloc against Sino-Russian interests. But what if the next president is someone else? What will be maintained and what will be abandoned? Therefore, the big question hanging over all these moves is not just whether there will be a new agreement or yet another treaty. The real question is, will what is being signed now last? Or will all of this, in the end, be remembered as yet another attempt at peace that merely postponed the inevitable confrontation? If you've come this far, it's because you feel that something very serious is happening. And you're right. That's why it's essential that you connect even more with this channel, where we reveal what few are noticing. Click now, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any revelations that are about to come to light. If this video gave you the feeling that something bigger is behind the events, comment below with the sentence, "The eyes are opening." This helps us know who is really paying attention to the signs and is part of that select group that is seeing beyond the surface. And if you haven't liked it yet, do it now. That way YouTube understands that this content needs to reach more people who, like you, are searching for the truth. And most importantly, don't stop here. The next video that appears on the screen will show you something even more surprising. But pay attention, few will have access to it before it disappears. Click now and discover what is still being hidden.